of you that are on the line, feel free to chat with us, and who knows, we'll get you guys in the hot seat. And for the purposes of the recording again, I'll introduce myself, and Karyn, I'll turn it over to you, and then Leslie, you'll go next. So I'm Crystal Davis. My company is the Lean Coach Incorporated, and I have been a lean practitioner for over 17 years, and just really, truly enjoy lean transformations, changing cultures, helping to develop strong leaders and strong companies. So it is my pleasure to be here this evening and to just share with everyone some of our experiences. Karyn?
My name is Karyn Ross, and my company is Karyn Ross Consulting, and I'm a lean consultant specializing in actually service excellence. And I'm a purpose-driven consultant, so that means that I'm really focused not so much on the end results, but really on the means, the how. How do we actually get where we're going? And I think that, really fits in what Crystal was saying as well. How do we actually teach people how to think about, delivering service excellence by using lean thinking? How do we transform cultures rather than just focus on those short-term, end results or goals? So if you're talking about lean in service and you want to know how to get there, ask any questions. Absolutely.
That's you.
Yep.
All right. And I am Leslie Henckler. I actually work for Paychex Corporation currently. And I have been studying Lean and Six Sigma and the whole, I'll say, science and methodology of process improvement since the early 90s. So I am delighted to be with these other ladies talking to all of you about lean and lean transformation and how we use it in our daily lives at work.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love that. So, all right, ladies. So how do we want to start this thing off? I did a couple of recent blogs about some Gemba management experiences that were going on with one of my clients, and it was just really amazing. So maybe I'll start out tossing out a couple of questions to you guys. So I guess let's start by hearing from each of you. What is your definition or explanation or understanding of Gemba?
So Gemba is really the place where the value is created for our customers. And I think lots of times, especially when you talk about services, people have a harder time understanding, where that is, rather than maybe like Crystal, when you're dealing with manufacturing and we can see a product going down the line, right? But if you go to an office environment and you see that, people are sitting in cubicles or they're doing maybe a variety of tasks behind computers, it's a lot harder to maybe even see and think and have the idea that that's where that value is being created for our customers.
Yeah, Karyn, I'd agree with you, right? It's always been a bias about the place where the work is done. And the trick for me with the Gemba and really going to see it is being able to tell what's actually going on. So is the work ahead or behind? Is it on track or not on track? And are the people having a good experience with the work that they're doing? And are we serving the clients? So there's a piece of the Gemba to go and see what's actually going on to understand for defect or process performance. But there's another piece that I think sometimes we don't really focus on, especially in service, which is around how do you tell in the place where people are doing work whether the client is actually being served and served in the way that they want to be.
Oh, that's awesome, Leslie. So, it's a great, great valid point both you ladies made about making the work visible and also looking at processes ahead and also behind of any process that you're looking at and making sure that you're delivering value to the customer. What are some of the ways, because the service area is always very intriguing for people to think differently about a widget, if you will. So what are some of the ways that you make service work and processes visible?
Well, one of the things, Leslie, I think that you hear this quite often also is that when we're dealing with the services, people just say, we aren't making widgets, right? It's not like we're making a car and you can see those parts going down the line, and we don't have 10-second cycle time, so none of this can apply to us. And so when you go to Gemba, one of the really, I think, most important things is that lean is probably more important in service because of that possibility of making things visible, right? So if you already can't see, because decisions are made in people's heads or they're typing things in computers, then how do we actually use different kind of tools and techniques so we can see that the work is, being created? Because Leslie, in the end, you actually do make a payroll check or a direct deposit, right? We're making something.
Yes, we are making a product, and it's a service. Right? Our product is a service, and when we think it's not, I think we delude ourselves, right? We actually have a finite thing that we deliver to our clients each and every day, and we have to keep in mind what that looks like and where it is in the process, such that we make sure we meet their expectation.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So talk to me a little bit about one of my blogs that I just wrote was about helping leaders within the organization understand. So we always tell them, go to Gemba, go to Gemba, go to Gemba. But really, how do we help them understand what to do when they get there? So we talked a little bit about how you make things more visible, but how do you guys work with your with the people that you serve? How do you work with them to help them understand what should you be doing when you get to the Gemba? And then I'll have a follow-up after you guys give me some answers to that one.
Karyn, go ahead. I'll follow.
Okay, what I was going to say, actually, Crystal, I love your blog post, and it really talks about if you go to Gemba and you listen, the Gemba is going to speak, but how, you have to go and be willing to listen. And I think the first challenge is, how do you get leaders who are, often used to sitting in offices and sitting behind computers and looking at reports and saying, well, of course, just give me another report,
right?
To actually leave their office and go to see something, right? So I think that's always the first challenge. And then when you get them out of the office, how do you actually have them have an open mind or an open heart so that they can hear or see what's actually happening versus the assumptions that they have about, what we think we know from either reading the report or maybe they did the job 10 years ago, right? And we
and they think
still going to be
it's the same, right? I mean, my God. You imagine the cell phone we were carrying 10 years ago? That's what I always say to people.
Boat anchor.
Exactly. Why would you think that something you did 10 years ago wouldn't change? So anyway, what about you, Leslie?
Well, for me, our Gemba is, much like with Karyn, it's service, it's different. Folks want to be able to look in the computer and they want to be able to see who called or how many calls do we have or how long did it take to do the calls, which it's all valid data. Right. But the feeling that you get and the understanding that you get when you actually see what the client has to say and what the client experiences is just, to me, exponentially different. So getting folks to really go into the Gemba and be with the people who are doing the work, not audit the work that the people are doing, but be with them while they're doing the work. So they get the heart of the work and the essence of the work, I think, is one of the pieces that sometimes is missing from our executives. And when they take the time to do that, I believe they get a fundamentally different client experience than when they're just looking at the reports and the data. So for me, that's a big chunk of what going to the Gemba means, is really being with the people and experiencing work the way that they experience work.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say when Karyn was talking about how do you get people to actually leave their desk or leave their office. And, I really talk to people about one, engaging the people that are actually doing the work, because you can make lots of assumptions from information or data. And so it's about going out and actually engaging with those people to really help you understand what's actually happening and what challenges and obstacles that those people are are facing. And so those are some of the questions that I teach leaders to ask, or instead of thinking that they have to go somewhere with answers, I coach them on going to ask Socratic questions about the process. And
yes, and
I'm sorry,
well,
go ahead.
I'm going to say, I actually have a technique that I use to get leaders to go to Gemba, which is if they schedule a meeting with me, I don't actually go into their office. Right? I do not enter their office. I stand at the door. I lean on the door and say, come, let's take a walk. And they're like, let's sit down. And I go, no, let's take a walk. Because once you actually go and sit down,
right,
it's a wrap. And you have the desk between you, it's going to be very hard to change someone's thinking just by a discussion. When you're walking and talking, at least you have, the person at the place. They may not be ready to see, they may not be ready to hear what the Gemba is speaking to them, but at least you've changed the behavior and you have them at least walking and doing something in the right place. So I never go into their office in the first place.
Well, they hate to see you coming, huh?
I bet they do.
Like, I'm gonna get where's my pedometer? I'm gonna get my
I'm not sitting down. I'm not sitting down at your desk. Let's go.
My friend Randy and I were doing a class today, and so we're doing kind of an intro 101 for process improvement or continuous improvement. And he was telling a story on me from about 8 years ago when I went out to do some work with him, and we were out in one of our print and fulfillment centers. And so he was running a Kaizen workshop, and every couple of hours he said I would come by and I would say to him, so Randy, what do you think? What do you think we ought to do? What do you think? What do you think we ought to do now? And his story was, he thought to himself, she's the black belt. What in the world is she for? She's supposed to know. Right. She's telling me what we're supposed to do. And so the story he was telling on himself today, and it was really, I think, quite poignant to the people that were in the class, was that he thought I was being a pain by not telling him.
Yes.
What he recognizes now is that what I was doing was asking him to teach him how to think.
Exactly.
So I was teaching him to do the things he needs to do versus telling him what to do. And so this is a fun story, right? Because as you work with people over time, you build relationships. But he was telling that story on himself in a way that helped these 18 people we were teaching today to understand that we're going to ask them questions. We're not going to tell them answers.
Exactly.
Because we'll ask them questions to force them to think about the answer, which is going to take them to the next level.
That is awesome, Leslie. That's exactly what I do. You reminded me of a colleague that I work with, and I was teaching. He was a subject matter expert in the particular process, and I was the operational excellence expert. And he would get so angry with me because I would never answer a question with just a direct answer. I would always ask him another question, and he's just like, "Damn it, Crystal, can't you just answer the question?"
But I think it's so interesting that people are so uncomfortable, if you ask them a question. And lots of times, and one of the things that I've started doing now is when I work with new groups, I start describing, the process that I'm going to use, that I'm going to ask questions, because otherwise people are so unused to anybody asking them a question. And maybe it goes back, Leslie, also to your point about audit, right? If someone's asking you a question, it's to audit you, to find out, to trap you. Did you
exactly
know the right answer? So
right. And that's why I also make sure that when I'm coaching leaders to make sure that they explain to people that they're safe to answer the questions truthfully, that it's not about setting them up. It's not about them having the right answer. It's not at all about, putting people on the defensive, and they have to create a very safe environment for people to be able to respond back, and that to let them know that we're really trying to get to understanding what's happening in your process, understanding if there are any opportunities. And you're the expert. You're here in the process every day, all day. We want to know your insights on how we can solve some problems. And so that's very, very important in teaching people what to do when they get to the Gemba. You don't just go out and rapid fire, all these questions off. You have to make, especially if that's not something that you've always done in your organization and that's not your culture. And the other thing is I tell managers that when people ask, well, you're the manager, you're the supervisor, you should have the answer, how to appropriately respond to that by, again, showing respect to the person and saying, you're the expert in the process. Yes, we can do that, but I want to engage you in solving problems and I really want to know how you would make this process better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people have to get comfortable with that.
Oh, yeah.
Right, especially from their leaders. They expect leaders, just because we've created this behavior model, that the leaders will tell them what to do or what the answer is. Yes. And when the leaders start asking questions, it makes people uncomfortable. But I think that as they demonstrate their respect for the answers that they get, and for helping people to use those answers to deliver a better performance, that they get more and more comfortable. It starts to build that culture where we really, truly respect the people who do the work, and the leader's role is simply to enable the people who do the work to do their work better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once leaders understand that their job is to enable people to do their job better, to be able to solve problems, then, I talk to them, and this is another way to get them to go actually to where the work is taking place, is I talk to them about being able then to be more strategic and forward thinking instead of reactive firefighting, changing priorities every 5 minutes, if you will, because they have to go and actually respond to those situations instead of trusting that the people that are in the roles can actually respond to certain situations. And so how do you guys work in helping leaders to understand the boundaries to set for people in terms of the problems that the organization wants them to stay focused on? And then second part of that question is, how do you guys coach on how then to effectively problem solve once those boundaries have been established?
Well, I'm going to say I've had a couple of different experiences with this. The first is when working with an organization, is to actually go and by listening and hearing, and in general, the leader has a good idea too, just from the complaints that they're receiving either from customers or from the other leaders, within their organization. Mm-hmm. Actually, what is the biggest problem? Right. So when you hear about that biggest problem, and then you go and you start to work to solve that problem, and through actually solving that problem and introducing, lean concepts and lean practices, then actually oftentimes that leader and the other leaders are very interested in coming and seeing what's happening, because things are getting better.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And exactly. So once things start to get better, other areas are like, well, we want to do what they're doing, right? So that works. I've also been in situations in which, it's been more ground up, in which the idea is, okay, we're going to just identify problems and we're going to start learning from there. And I don't think that actually, although we can start to teach people, to solve problems using that, it's a less strategic approach. And I think that that's harder than, I think, to get leadership involvement. What do you think, Leslie?
I think that when we focus on I almost say the minutia, right? The issues that are right there at the Gemba, that when we help those people make those improvements, we start to see the improvements begin to snowball.
Yes.
We see them start to snowball, to your point, Karyn, right? People say, oh, what are they doing there? Because we weren't doing that, and now they're doing this, and now their performance has improved. And so I think there's an innate competitiveness in a positive way to try and grab onto what people are doing and start to learn from it and drive it. But the secret sauce in it all for me is around really understanding what the current performance is, what the gap is to the desired performance, really focusing on that as opposed to scattershot, shotgun.
Yeah.
Fix anything, fix 100 things. But what are the 3 things that are hindering us from delivering the result we're trying to deliver? When we focus on those 3 versus the 100, because anything could be better. I think that when we really focus, that's when the leaders lead and the people understand that the work that they're doing truly delivers a higher level of performance for the organization.
Right. And I think it goes back to also the beginning discussion about delivering value for the customer.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because unless we know what the customer wants, right, and what the customer requirement is, we can make any kind of changes we want, but we don't actually know if it's an improvement, right? It could honestly just be a change.
It's better, but is it better in a way that is materially important, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And then too, I think it's important too that I like to always help people understand if they aren't directly connected to the external customer, that they need to identify with their internal customer. And so that they have that same sense of urgency and focus around making sure that what they do really adds value for that customer, whether it's next in process customer or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I thought about another question I was going to ask about something you said, Leslie. Oh, crap. I can't remember what it was about right off. So the next thought I had was around once you actually get people to focus on value for the customer, and then you get them actually focused on, going to the Gemba, focusing on those problems, how do you then get them to prioritize? Because one of the things I noticed that happens a lot with people is they are now they're able to see, which is what we want people to do, right? Learning to see. And then they struggle with, well, now we see all of this stuff that's wrong. Where do we focus? And you talked about picking like those top 3, but I've often found that a lot of people don't agree on what the top 3 are. So how do you guys handle that?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the tools that we've been really talking to folks a lot about is a really, really simple thing around impact effort, right? So we look at the 4-block impact effort matrix. We look at what are the things we want to do, what's the effort we have to put in to do it, and what's the impact we're going to get. And what we're really looking for are what are there's lower effort, higher impact items. We want to target those. And those high effort, low impact ones, we want to leave those alone. And really just having that dialogue with people, I have found to be really positive in terms of getting agreement around what are we going to try first, second, and third.
Yes. Those are great, great tools. Karyn, you have any additional tools?
Well, I'm going to say a lot of times I find when we have this type of problem, it really is a symptom of not being clear about the direction that we're going in terms, do we really understand what our customer really wants, right? So oftentimes we can't prioritize, and we find that, well, we don't know if this would be more important or this would be less important because we don't know either what our customer wants or the direction that our company is actually going, right?
Right.
We have so many different competing priorities.
Right.
Should we focus on this? Should we focus on that? So sometimes I just see that as a symptom of we need to actually go back to leadership and figure out from that strategic view, Crystal, that you were talking about,
right?
Where is it that we're going? What's the direction? And then we can go back down and, are we clear what our customer wants, what the biggest gaps are, and what actually then is, as you said, Leslie, is going to give us the biggest bang for the buck to solve, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love the principle around the Toyota Kata where it talks about, what's the target condition? And then everybody agreeing on the target condition. And then secondly, what problem are we really trying to solve? And I think in addition to doing the priority matrices, and are the impact matrices, as you referenced, Leslie, is to really get clear. And also, Karyn, what you said about getting clear about where are we going, what are we trying to accomplish. But I think, most often people aren't even clear on what the target condition is. And a lot of times, we talk about value to the customer, which is very critical. But even for some of the work that people do, that whether it's value add, incidental work, or non-value add work, people still aren't always very clear on the target condition that they need to achieve. And then for them first to understand that, and then evaluate, what's the value for the target of this target condition to our customer? Does it really meet the goals that they have for the process?
One of the most fun pieces of work we've been doing as of late has been around getting people to really fundamentally articulate their problem statement.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're looking for work they want to do, we'll say, well, what are the things you want to do? And they'll say, well, we want to do X, Y, and Z. And then we'll come back and say, well, what problem will that solve?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So those simple things around what's the gap in performance that you're trying to close. I'm not saying it's a bad idea what you want to do.
Right. What
I want you to tell me is, what's the gap in performance you're trying to solve, so we can determine if that's really a good fit for that. And when you get into that, it is eye-opening, because people come with what they perceive as a problem with a ready solution. And the solution may or may not be the right fit for what that problem is, right? So it's not about judging their idea as good or bad. It's about how do we have a conversation and understand what's really causing a performance gap, so that we can lay that out and start to collect some data and say, you know what, that is a spot on idea. That's exactly what we should do. Or it's not a bad idea, but it isn't the right thing to solve this particular gap in performance. And it's just been a blast doing that with teams and watching the light bulbs go on and people go, oh my God,
right.
I so get that I wanted to do this. It's not even going to help. I need to be over here. And so for me, that's been one of the most fun pieces of work we've been doing lately.
Oh, that's awesome. I love those light bulb moments. I mean, that for me makes my day. And it really, really makes my day for people who have been working in an organization for a very, very long time. I have a lot of people, are very uncomfortable when I ask them, what would you do about this? To know that they've been in that position or been on that job or with that company for so very long, and no one's ever asked them. Right. No one's ever asked them at all. But to have those aha moments and people get it and things start to come together and their wheels start to churn, and to see people get excited about their work, those are the things that, you can't put a price on them at all.
Karyn, you have a few of those, don't you?
Yes, we have those quite often.
That's good.
And one of the wonderful things, and this goes back to leadership, I'm often with leaders who, will say to me, well, we're concerned about going to the Gemba and sitting with people or seeing people because we think that people then are going to feel like, we're, again, auditing them or judging them. If we go to Gemba, we're going to make them uncomfortable. And I always try to also tell the leaders, think about, what a reward it is to have your manager or your leader and how valued you feel as a team member. If you have your leader spend their valuable time to come and actually sit and really listen. And again, the key is you have to really go and listen with open heart and open mind.
Exactly. Exactly.
But how valued and respected is that person going to feel when you actually spend your time to find out, what are the problems that they're dealing with? They're the closest to the customer in general. So they're really going to know.
Yep.
That's true. That's true. That is so very true. And it's like, I tell people all the time, that we spend a lot of times, the practitioners, we spend a lot of times talking about the lean tools or methodologies. And I don't know about you guys, but I spent a lot of time working on people skills, leader skills, dealing with cultural differences and cultural shifting cultural behaviors, such as what you mentioned by, removing that intimidation factor, welcoming people into the sandbox. You have some of those workers who are like, just don't come in my sandbox, leave me alone. I just want to do my job. And then helping them to really understand, no, listen, we want to actually engage you. We don't want you to just come in and be robotic and do this all. We want to engage you. And so, those are the types of things that we don't teach when we teach tools.
Right.
To people. And that's part of, one of the things that just grinds my gear. And I know that it's important to talk about it, but these articles that lead with why lean fails, and then we have all these different, stats, and I'm like, did lean fail, or did our approach fail, or did we not truly engage people? But, and I get the gist of what it means, but I think it's just one of those shocking titles that draws people to a blog or to an article. But I think that it's we have to be so careful in saying that lean failed and not, really evaluating our approach. I always tell people, I think the reason that the title disturbs me so is that for a practitioner to then talk about something failing and not really looking at, well, it's just a problem, or it's a gap between, where we want to be or the target condition, and how do we go about trying to actually solve the problem. So that for me is, isn't that kind of hypocritical, like for us to talk about lean failing?
Lean, like when you think about it, right? It's how do we get things to the client or the customer faster, cleaner, better, right? The purposefulness of that doesn't fail.
No.
Right? The tools, right? You can't argue that a Pareto diagram failed, that a scatter plot failed, right?
Right.
The idea of single piece flow versus batch, it doesn't fail.
It doesn't fail.
What fails is our ability to choose the right tools at the right time and to lead it in a way that our teams are successful. So the lean doesn't fail, but I honestly believe sometimes our leaders do.
Mm-hmm. And I think, part of it is part of the whole part about the leadership failing is some leaders really aren't clear on how their role changes, what they need to do, that a lot of this soft skill stuff comes into play. Listening, with empathy, listening with an open heart, open mind. They don't really think about those things when they think about, what they understand about lean and lean tools. They think it's just a matter of, let's just go do this, and miss out on the cultural aspect and not really clear that that's what they signed up for.
Right. And I think, I think a lot of times also, leaders who really have been rewarded and promoted for various different behaviors, that have got them there. Oftentimes those behaviors are the behaviors that focus on the results, right?
That's
simply the ends, right? Did you make your number? Did you reach that goal? Right. But actually have never been focused on the, how you get there. Right. And what we're doing is teaching people, how to get there, right? That's what you do in your process is what delivers that value. So it's very different. I think they're just totally unprepared. They've been promoted, they've been rewarded. They, used to the ends, and now we're like, okay, well, let's go see the means, right? So they may not have the soft skills, but they also don't have the understanding that value is delivered to customers by a process done by the people who do that process.
That's true. That's so very true. So very true. So I want to ask, one last question, and then what we'll do is do a roundtable and open up the fourth seat for anybody who wants to come in and round out our discussion. So we've talked a lot about leaders, about leadership. So I'd like to hear from you, both of you. What's your definition, if you will, of leadership? And then I'll give my response, and then we'll open up the seat.
Okay, Leslie, do you want to go first, or do you want?
Sure, I'm not gonna go. She's waiting on me this time. For me, when I look at leaders that I have experienced and that I totally respect as it relates to the work, it's those people that truly get what the business requirement is, but then they get the heart of the people and the need to use the people who actually do the work, right? They truly get the idea of the inverse pyramid, that the leader is the little bit, right? And that the people is the big part, and that we need to be able to support the people from the leader position and then trust the people to tell us what it is that we need to do in order to deliver the experience or the work that we need to. So for those that I'm most respectful of in my career, those are the ones that I find they're great lean leaders, they're great people leaders, they're just great leaders overall. And the lean becomes just a piece of how we help them deliver the very results that they're trying to deliver with their team.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I'm going to agree a lot with Leslie. And I think the people who I've worked with who've been, very good leaders have been the people, first of all, who have a vision, for where we're going to go, right? They have a vision. They're willing to listen and learn from their customers. They're willing to listen and learn from their people. And their vision is actually what Leslie has a great picture in her office. I don't know if you still have it in your office, Leslie, but it's the sculling boat, right?
I absolutely do. I'll always have that picture in my office.
So, when all of the oars are in the water paddling together, the boat is going in the same direction, right? So how does that leader set that direction and then enable everybody who is, underneath whatever level, whatever it is, the position they have, to know what their role in the organization is and perform their role so that the boat can go straight rather than around in a circle. We've seen that.
Going in a circle is a really bad thing, but hey, I get your point.
And we've seen that before too.
Yes, both very, very great definitions and characteristics of leaders. One of the things for me that was very, very liberating, because I placed a lot of expectations on leaders, because I gave reverence to people in positions, and one of John Maxwell's definitions about leadership or explanations about leadership was leadership for him is not about position or title or where you fall in an org chart. Leadership is about influence, nothing more, nothing less. And for me, that was so liberating because for me personally, I had to realize that regardless of the position or title that I held, I was viewed by others as a leader in the organization. That was first and foremost. And so that made me very aware, not just of me looking to other people for how they led, but also making sure that I was leading authentically myself. And then also, especially working at various levels within organizations, I would find that, we talk about the naysayer, especially when we talk about doing any type of change. And at the end of the day, the naysayer is a leader, because the naysayer is influencing people, even though it may be against what the company's targeting or going for. But one of my strategies was to always target that naysayer. If there was a naysayer on the team or in the Kaizen event, I would always target that naysayer and get to the real root issue of why they were against or appeared to be against making any changes or improvements, because that person, if converted, could have such a huge impact on the organization.
I think Andrea Brown always called that person the dragon, right?
Yes. The dragon.
Yes, that, there's always going to be that dragon, and you'd find them, and that if you could actually then work with them and turn them, they were going to be your biggest ally. Yeah.
They breathe fire all over the organization.
Absolutely, right? It's those people that everyone follows, irrespective of the direction they're going, right? Find them and get them to come with you, and they'll bring them with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, ladies, it's been a pleasure. I've had a great time. I did open up the seat if anybody that's in the chat room wants to join in the open seat and have conversation or dialogue. Please feel free to just click on open seat, and then I'll accept you. Coach Jenny got here too late, but thanks. Oh, sorry. So yeah, anybody who wants to come in, please come in. And what we'll do is I'll round it out with until somebody else comes in to the seat. I'll round it in with letting you guys give any final concluding thoughts. Leslie, you want to kick us off?
Sure. For me, this has been an absolute blast. I am a zealot around lean. I am passionate around helping people and businesses make the improvements that are possible, and to just have the opportunity to dialogue with both of you and with the folks that are here watching with us, and just have a chance to put our voices out in the room and talk about it has been just absolutely tremendous. So Crystal, I appreciate you organizing us tonight, and I hope that the folks who joined us enjoyed and appreciated the commentary that we delivered.
Yep,
yes, and thank you.
Yes, and I will second that, Leslie, and I hope that we will have many more opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would like for us to at least try to make this, the three of us getting together once a week, at least, if we could do that, and really get some traction, with our tribes and get them used to a specific time, maybe an evening. I don't know if Thursday will always work for us, but maybe we'll figure it out. We'll try some different things and figure it out. But I've had a great time, a really great time. And I think it's so important for us to share some of the lessons and experiences that we've learned and had that aren't really taught with these tools, so that we can keep growing a community of, great leaders, great lean practitioners, and keep the movement going forward. So.
No, I'm with you. I was really blessed by having some phenomenal teachers, both U.S. teachers and Japanese teachers around really the thinking, right? The tools are the tools, but the thinking is what matters. And having been blessed by that, to me, that's a gift that was given to me, that at any opportunity to give that back to other people is something that I'm all for. So hopefully we can do some more of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So ladies, with that, we didn't have anybody to join us in the open seat. And so I'm glad that you really like the format and the platform, and really, really thankful that you agreed to come on with me. So with that, I thank you so much. I will be sending you guys this recording, so you'll have that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Kristen.
Yeah, thank you.
And I will reach out to you about when we can do our next one.
All right, terrific. And for anybody that joined us, hey, thanks for being here with us. And hopefully they'll jump in the seat and ask us some more questions next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.